Okay, welcome to the second Fly Racing DigitalOffroad.com GNCC post-race show. We're here at Aonia Pass Motocross Park in Washington, Georgia for the round 2 of the Can-Am Grand National Cross Country Series. Rodney, coming into this round, it's 5 days after the first GNCC. We don't really know what to expect. The conditions are about completely opposite. We go from sandy, like the most sand you can think of in the world, to hard clay.
And mud.
Yeah.
And lots of it. That seemed to be the key this week was mud. And fortunately, the rain and stuff that we saw earlier in the week didn't play as much of a role in today's race than what we originally expected it to. I know in the ATVs yesterday it played a big role, but today the bikes, things dried out pretty nice, and it made for probably perfect conditions as far as racing was concerned. And we saw what we like to see, the old school GNCC racing. We saw 6, 7, 8, 10 guys get out at the early part of the race, and then it just, they wicked it up, and they all started falling off one by one until we got our top 3.
Yeah. It's been a while since we've seen a race for these bike guys where they really were able to stay, in that pack and that train for a while. It seems like always somebody wants to make a break. Last race it was Mike Brown wanted to make a break, wanted to try and go for it. And today, right off the bat, it was Nate Canny grabbing the whole shot. It looked like it was going to be Russell Bobbitt, and poor Russell slid out, in the first turn, making a visit from the National Enduro Series on that 2-stroke. So that thing was going to start. I thought he was going to get the whole shot, and he almost took out Strang. We almost had a repeat of the big first turn pileup we had here last year, if you remember, with all the Yamaha guys and Jimmy Jarrett and all that. But, the race got out there good, and there was I think we had 6 guys out front that were just swapping positions back and forth.
It was unbelievable. And they're the names that we kind of expect to see up there, too. We're talking the Paul Wibleys, the Josh Strangs, we're talking the Corey Buttricks, the Thad Duvals, we're talking the Charlie Mullinses, and one name we're not talking, though, unfortunately, is the Caleb Russells.
Yeah, poor Caleb, came down with what he thinks was a batch of food poisoning. He was up sick all night, and he tried to go for it, but you could just tell it was not the same Caleb, all day long, not the same guy, and it was just a shame.
Yeah, I took a visit with him over just before the race, and, I was really questionable whether or not he was even going to be able to ride. But, that goes to show you just how much maturity that rider has made since last year in the XC2 Pro Lights class, because I think a year ago, Caleb Russell would have just called it a day and not even raced. But you can see that he means serious business, and Caleb's in this thing to win this championship, and he wants to do it in his rookie season. It's going to be tough now that he's kind of starting out behind the 8 ball, but the one thing that we can almost always count on, Jason, is everybody always seems to have at least one bad race a year, so we can see the points race tighten up for Caleb again real quick, and if he can click off a win or two and some of these guys have a bad race, he'll be right back at it. I think the championship this year is the field is so deep. I think there's any one of 7, 8, 10 guys maybe that could win this championship this year.
Yeah, we're not in the same situation that we were in last year, where after this round, Strang had strung 2 wins in a row together, was going with a big lead. It's not like that. Everything's going to be real tight now. The guys are, Charlie Mullins ended up not having the best of races. I was talking to Auntie Colin, and he said he had a big get off on lap 4. It was kind of similar to, last race. Him and Strang were hooked up, and Strang was the one that had the big get off and wasn't able to make a run. And Charlie had a big get off and ended up 6th. And then we had another guy that had a big crash, Chris Bach, wasn't able to repeat the awesome performance that he had last race on that beta. Yeah, it's unfortunate for Chris that we had a pretty stacked field here, a pretty deep field at this Maxxis General GNCC, where his bad race ended up being a 15th. We've seen in years past, I remember a couple years ago, Paul Whibley derailed his chain at Loretta's and was a lap down, but still got like a 9th or something like that, and ended up helping him win the championship. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens at the end of the year. Everybody, like you said, everybody's going to have a bad race. It's just the nature of the beast. You can't race for 3 hours at a GNCC without eventually something going wrong. So hopefully this was Chris's last one, and we'll just see what happens from here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Talking about something going wrong, talking with Paul Whibley there on the podium, pretty amazing. The swollen eye that he had, and I gotta wonder if being a lumberjack from days gone by and things like that, and being known as the Axeman, if maybe the trees aren't after him. He had a tree rip his radiator off in Florida. Today on the final lap, he took a tree to the eye. He had a big swollen eye on the podium. Just unbelievable what that guy's going through right now. It looks like nature's against him this year.
Yeah, almost like a bee sting or something was going after him. So kids, remember that. Always wear your goggles, because you only got 2 eyes and you don't want to lose them. That's
exactly.
For sure.
Amen about that. But it was an outstanding day. We saw Whibley take the win. Strang battled his way back and forth. He finally secured himself in that number 2 spot. And Jason, at one point, it was kind of questionable whether or not he was going to be able to do that.
Yeah, Thad Duvall was making a good run there, and Whibley started pulling away. And those last couple laps, it was real touch and go. The leads would shrink, the leads would expand, guys would get around each other. Wibbs was out front, but Thad and Strang kept going back and forth. We heard at one point with about 5 or 6 miles to go that Strang was closing in on Whibley, and then the next time I see him come around, Thad's back in front of him. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's not the case. And then, Strang got back around him, and then he stretched out a little bit of a lead. We were just, following the updates so close, and those guys were just going back and forth. And we were preparing for the photo finish. We had guys lined up every inch of this finish line just in case we had a big race, and it didn't really happen that way. They kind of just came in evenly spaced. Whibley first, obviously, Strang second, and Thad Duvall third. And then I don't know the exact time, but it was a 15 seconds, 20 seconds or something like that. Corey Buttrick came through in fourth. Then we had Nate Canny in fifth, and
sixth place went to Mullins.
Mullins, man, and I think we mentioned earlier that we heard that Mullins had a big crash, and he was the first guy to really just kind of fall off that train. We had that big train of 6 riders, and it was pretty darn tight.
Yeah, they had a 4-minute gap on 7th place, believe it or not. That was huge, no doubt about it.
Yeah, those guys just hooked up, and you were waiting for someone to make the move, but I think they were going so fast that no one could really do it, and that's just the way we ended up finishing it.
Yeah, and then, of course, we got the XC2 Pro Lights class, which was yet another great race today, man. We've seen a lot of the same names up front and also a few different ones as well.
Yeah, well, we got Shane O'Banion grabbing the whole shot, who's, I think, a relative newcomer to the XC2 class. And I've seen his name before. I don't really know too much about the kid, but this is the second race in a row where we've got newer guys grabbing the whole shot, getting up front early, which is awesome to see, these new guys. And that's what this class is for. This class is for the younger guys. And I think, they're starting to figure that out and get into it, and it's awesome racing.
Yeah, it's a great stepping stone into that XC1 Pro class. And I tell you, the ride today that these guys had, phenomenal. Jesse Robinson got out to the front of the pack somewhat early. He got about a mid-pack start going into the woods, but he said he took some pretty hairy chances out there, and he said one mud hole, he literally said, I don't know how deep it was because I rode right across the top of it.
Yeah, well, Jesse gets out there. He's a pretty big kid, and he can muscle around that KTM 250XC. There's no doubt about it. That was another good race. We didn't really know what was going on because I know those guys are a little bit farther back, and we couldn't really see them as much as we'd like. But, Jason Thomas was out front at one point, and then Jesse got out front. And, the last lap I heard Jesse had a 50-some second lead coming in, and I wasn't really sure what happened. I know we heard on the radio that Jason Thomas had a huge get off.
Yep.
I know that at one point they were actually thinking of calling the medics for him because it was so bad, but he was able to get back up and salvage a podium finich.
And even Fred Andrews, he was like, we did an interview just before Jason clicked it on there in those last couple of laps, and he was like, talking about how bad. He was just happy at that point that Jason was still out there after hearing how bad that crash was. And then it wasn't 2 minutes after that we started getting updates that Jason Thomas was starting to close in from 4th place, and the next thing you know, he starts dialing them in, and Jason's got Jordan Ashburn in his sights, and Ashburn, man, I tell you, a rookie to this XC2 Pro Lights class, definitely showing some promise early on.
Yeah, we didn't really see Jordan at all down in Florida, and I was kind of bummed about that. He's been he was the top amateur last year. The year before that, he was battling with Chris Bach for top amateur, so we know the kid has the speed, and he wasn't able to really show his full potential in Florida, and he was finally up there battling with these guys in the XC2 class, but he wasn't able to hold on for a podium spot.
No, but it was a really good experience for that youngster, and I think that's a glimpse of what we've got to see in the future. Another name that we haven't seen, and I think because he's a rookie in the XC2 Pro Lights class this year, is Brad Backen. This guy rode a solid top 5 ride all day today, and there toward the end was able to capitalize on a few mistakes and some misfortunes on Jordan Ashburn. He was able to take the 4th place position finish. But I think, again, Stu Baylor was another eye-opener. He finished up 2nd place today, and the kid, he did it in style.
Well, Stewart is such a funny kid to listen to him talk. He actually stopped in the pits and took the tape off his hands because it was causing him arm pump, and still ended up getting 2nd on the podium, which is just insane. Stopped, took his gloves off, changes his tape. So it's pretty crazy stuff.
He was like 8th place or something like that, I think, there on the first lap at one point. That kid is unbelievable. It's going to be a lot of fun watching this class develop.
Yeah, it's kind of, I hate to say this, but it's kind of nice without Caleb in it. He was kind of the dominating force in that class for the last 2 years. And I think all these guys, they smelled blood in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Thomas has been the top guy, the number 2 guy for the last 2 years. But these guys, they're not scared of him. They're going for it.
They're
And,
not.
obviously, Jason hasn't been able to get a win yet, and it's going to be a really good season because he's going to get them.
Oh, yeah.
There's no doubt about it. It's going to happen, and that just means the points are going to tighten up, and it's going to be a good season in that class too.
It is. I mean, both classes, all classes, as a matter of fact, at GNCC, real competitive this year. And, I think as far as championship points are concerned right now, we're tight in the XC1. It's close to tied, if not. Not sure how that's going to pan out when it's all said and done. Jesse Robinson and Stuart Baylor, they also got a pretty tight battle going on in the points lead in that XC2 Pro Lights class. It's only just begun, and a lot more changes, I think, are on the horizon.
Yeah, it's going to be a really, really good season. We get a 2-week break here. Everybody can refresh, recharge their batteries. I know everybody's a little road weary right now. It's been a gnarly couple weeks here, and so it's gonna be good. We're going to Steel Creek, just down the road from my house. I'm gonna be stoked I can sleep in my own bed, Rodney. It's gonna be awesome.
That is, and that's probably one of my most favorite tracks on this tour. It's the most picturesque. I know we've got some premier events like snowshoe and this and that, but you're not going to find any prettier terrain, I don't think, than what you find there at Steel Creek Campground and Reserve there in Morganton, North Carolina. Steel Creek GNCC. Be there is all I got to say.
Yeah, exactly. If you need any more information on the events, check out the GNCC website, gnccracing.com. They've got all the stuff, directions, hotels, all that good stuff on there. And, you can check out more information on the series there as well. Tuesday Toolbox, Quick Fill, or you can hit up digitaloffroad.com. We've got all sorts of good stuff coming for you, too. That's pretty much it, Rodney. You got any closing words?
All I got to say is I'm excited. It's only 2 rounds in, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens whenever we finally make it to Indiana.
Yep, can't wait. See you guys in a couple weeks.